So I'm having a chat with the Eves. How are you guys?
We are good.
We're good, thank you. How are you?
Good, yeah, not too bad. Thanks so much. So, kicking things off for 2023, you have a new single, After the Love. Tell us a bit about the track.
So it's the age-old theme of breakup, but we wanted to kind of flip it a little bit and just make it an upbeat dance track instead. So there's kind of sad lyrics, but it's kind of we wanted to turn it on its head and just make it upbeat,
a bit of a dance anthem really for the dance floor.
Good. And when you went in to record this track, was it always the plan to make it this upbeat dance sound, or is that simply just how it turned out?
It's really just how it turned out, to be honest. It started out just on the piano, but I always knew that there was going to be that kind of piano riff at the start, which kind of lends itself well to the pop dance theme.
Good. And is this the start of more new music to come this year, and are we gearing up towards a bigger body of work?
We certainly hope so. We've got tons and tons of songs that were kind of half done during COVID and just after COVID. So we had spent quite a lot of time in that phase to record new material, but we've got such a massive catalogue of other songs that we're very excited to work on this year. Hopefully an album at some point as well, Jim.
Good, that's great to hear, and I'm sure your fans will be looking forward to that. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about the writing process. So how do things normally start off for you guys? Is it normally lyrics first? Is it a melody? Is it a sound first? What kind of kicks things off when you come to write a track?
I guess it's different every time, generally. I like to start with melody first, but sometimes a lyric will creep in and the song will kind of evolve from there. Sometimes we write a whole song each and then we come together, or we write half a song and then we finish it, or we start something from like a riff or a melody.
Yeah. It very much kind of depends on the situation and where you're at. And I think at first we started writing together quite a lot. Back in the early days, we kind of sit in a room and we'd be working together on stuff, but that doesn't always kind of pan out. So we've kind of learned that sometimes the best way is just to go off on your own, to sit down to think of an idea, and then you can bring it back to the table later on once you've got a good idea of where the song's going.
Yeah, and when you come to write, you're obviously probably doing it individually. Obviously, you both write for yourselves as well. How do you know whether it's going to be a track for yourself or whether it's an Eves project track, or how does that work?
I think for me, if I think back to the sort of Caroline Gilmer back catalogue, it was a bit more kind of singer-songwritery. It was a bit more girl and guitar. I suppose a bit indie and less pop. So I think when I get in that kind of mindset and then I'm actually sitting at the guitar and working on some songs, and then Marisa will say, oh, that sounds very 90s or very Caroline Gilmer, then I'll kind of know right away that probably won't work for the Eves. But there is the odd occasion where I'll be sitting and I'll think of, I suppose, an infectious chorus, a pop chorus, and that's them, and I know, oh, that's definitely for the Eves. So I think it sort of depends on where your head's at the time, and the kind of themes that you're trying to write about as well. I think with the Eves, I guess it's more a kind of universal theme, whereas I think back to my back catalogue and my solo work, and it was probably more singer-songwriter with all the personal themes, all the songs of angst and heartbreak. So I try to keep that away from the Eves as much as I can.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And once you've got your tracks kind of written and into demo stage, you obviously then go into a studio. How does it then go from that demo to a finished track?
I guess it's different every time with that as well. Sometimes we work in a studio. We've done that a lot in the past, and then COVID changed things. So during that period, we'd written a lot of songs. We did some work remotely with a producer called Lewis Gardner, and we basically sat on a Zoom call with him, and we built up the track. So we'd send him a demo track of what we'd written, and then we'd sit over a Zoom call and we would try out different sounds, different bass lines, things like that, build up the track to a basic level, and then he would send it, we would record vocals at home, and we would send it back to him, and then he would mix all and put all the finishing touches on it. But I think we're quite keen to get back in a studio, a proper studio again at some point, because it's just a nicer feel for us.
Yeah, what was it like over the last few years having to do things over Zoom rather than being in the studio with Lewis and that?
I think it's been quite frustrating. I mean, I suppose at first, thinking back to it, I think it actually helped us in a way. So before COVID, we had gone down a certain path. Our first single, Tides, is a little bit different to the rest of the material that we've put out since. It was a lot more organic. And I suppose the first kind of batch of songs that we worked on, they were done, I guess, in a studio, weren't they? And we spent quite a bit of time on them. And then when the pandemic came, we thought, oh God, what we're going to do now? And that was when, I suppose, the Zoom and the remote working thing was just excellent at the time, because then we realised, well, actually nothing will actually hold us back. So we can actually keep going here. But then it started to wear a bit thin, sitting in your cupboard at home and trying to record your vocals. It just didn't feel very exciting or very energised to do it in your house, on your own, and with no one around you to help to encourage or to share ideas with. So I think that's the part that I miss, is the being in the studio, and I guess where the magic happens and you get to share ideas. So I guess there's the pros and cons for each, isn't there, Marisa?
Yeah, definitely. It is nice to be in a studio, but I guess equally there are opportunities that wouldn't come otherwise. So maybe you might work with a producer, in the States or something like that. So an opportunity might come up, and you think, well, do we have the budget to be, and the time to be, going over to America to work in a studio over there, or could we do it remotely and still have that opportunity of working with somebody who you might not get the chance to otherwise?
Yeah, no, definitely. And people will want to see you live. What's the plans for this year and being out on the road?
So we're about to go back on tour with Skerryvore in May. So we're doing about 9 dates down in England as a part of their UK tour. We've got a couple of festivals that are going to be coming up over the summer and into autumn. And then we might have some shows at the end of the year as well. Also planning on putting on our own shows, probably Edinburgh, Glasgow, and some local places in Scotland as well. So we have got plans. We just need to work on them.
Good. And I'm sure you'll be wanting to take it overseas as well at some point. What are you hoping to take it abroad as well?
We'd love to, but I think it will come down to money. I think it will come down to what the event is, and obviously there's lots of complications now for touring musicians after Brexit with the visas and things like that. So we're not really sure where the land lies here at the moment, but it would be lovely to go overseas. I think it'll boil down to whether we can afford to do it or not. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, it's been a pleasure having a catch up with you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Jen. Nice to chat to you finally.